Okay, welcome. We're going to get started. Thank our candidates for being here. I'm Greg Aldridge, your host. I know a lot of you expected Larry Myers to be here, but Larry's flight canceled last night from Florida. He's doing a vacation and also kind of a help on the disasters back there. So we're glad to see Larry do that, and we've been following him on Facebook. So he's on the shuttle home right now. His plane's landed, but anyway, so you have me. And this is the Dixie Republican Forum. We welcome you. We are a conservative group, whatever definition conservative means to you. And we hope that you're like-minded like us. The vice president of this group is Carol Aldred over there. And good to see her. And then most of our other executive committees out of town. Is there anybody I missed on that?
Well, Sandra's here.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for
awesome.
coming. Okay. So I've asked us to get started tonight. Jimmy Keston will offer a prayer, and then afterwards Marge Robinson will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Jim.
Yeah, as the chairman of the Washington County Republican Party, a perfect choice in an election is always two Republicans running together. It's a perfect choice. Let's pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for the opportunity to live in a free nation that by your will has given us the opportunity to choose our leaders, to exercise the privilege of voting, and to have the accountability of these elections and candidate forums to understand the issues of the day and to make a wise selection. We ask for your blessing upon both of these gentlemen who have put themselves forward for the opportunity to lead the great city of St. George. We thank you for their heart of service and for their tireless efforts to improve this community, as they are both good men. We thank you for all those who have gathered tonight to listen to what these gentlemen have to say and to participate in this. And we ask for your blessing upon this election and upon all of our efforts to protect and preserve the lifestyle that so many have given so much to give us this legacy. We also would be remiss if we didn't lift up every man and woman wearing the uniform of the United States Armed Services and ask for your hand of protection upon them wherever they're serving across the globe, that you would bring each of them home to their families safe. And we thank you for that in Jesus Christ's precious name. Amen.
Amen. Please rise.
Please stand. Raise the flag. Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If everyone would please silence their phones, we appreciate it. Okay, we have questions that we have received, and then I think Carol asked the crowd if there were some from the audience. So time-wise, we usually end at 8 o'clock, and so if our candidates are willing to stay after, if there are other questions that you have, we appreciate that. We'll direct it at that time. We'll start with a 5-minute introduction from each candidate, and we'll start with Mayor Pike.
Thank you, Greg. I'm going to stand up because I think the mic's strong enough it'll still pick me up. It's an honor to be with you tonight, and really it's an honor to serve and to have served for these last 4 years as the mayor of St. George. It's a wonderful place to be. As I was heading this evening coming here, I was coming from another event down at Dixie Middle School, and I don't know how many of you, but I hope all of you happen to notice the gorgeous evening that it was. And looking up towards the Red Hill and then Pine Valley Mountain in the background, it was just gorgeous. And so, of course, this time of year, it's kind of a little extra special. It's cooler, it's beautiful, and we've just really welcomed the world here, quite literally, these last couple weeks. First with the marathon, with 7,800 registered runners. One of them is Commissioner Renstrom back there. I saw him. I know he made it because I saw him getting really close. So I think you made it, right, Zach?
I made the last mile.
Yeah, see, yeah. So anyway, then the senior games, the 10,800 athletes from 34 countries around the world and all 50 states from the United States we welcomed here. And those are the athletes, not to count the people that come with them. So 31 years of the Huntsman World Senior Games, 41 years of the St. George Marathon. It's a special place, and you helped make it that way. We couldn't do any of those events without the volunteers. Hundreds and hundreds, even thousands sometimes of volunteers to make these events work. And those are just a couple. Those are just a couple big ones here in October. So those are some of the things that make me just love living here. I hope you enjoy it too. There are so many wonderful things going on, and I just can't help but be positive about where we've been and where we're going. 4 years ago, I made several commitments, and I really tried to keep those commitments. There were 3 in particular, 3 planks to my platform, if you will. First, it was listening. Second, it was planning. And third, it was a focus on business, economic development, as well as education. I tied those 2 together, business and education, because I think they are linked, joined at the hip, if you will, for our success. So we've really tried to do that in terms of listening. I believe we've done that in a number of ways. We changed even our meeting structure so that our regular meetings, where we have public hearings and where we make decisions that you may want to be a part of, we changed that. We left that meeting time at 5, we moved that meeting time to 5 and set public hearings to be no sooner than 5:30 so people could get there after work. And then we left our work meetings where we're hearing presentations and discussing things more, left those at 4 because, again, the public's welcome, but we aren't usually making decisions in those meetings. So that's one way. We also added several boards. For example, an airport advisory board we recreated after that had been done away with for some time. We felt that was important to recreate. We created an animal shelter advisory board. You might remember there are some issues with the animal shelter 4.5 years ago. So we created that. We also created an active transportation committee and several other smaller, less formalized committees. So these are some ways that we've tried to go about listening more, the City Council and I, to people. We, of course, have great use of email and our cell phones, and I give that information out over the air, much to my wife's chagrin. Christy, you can wave, say hi. But I feel that that's our duty. We ought to be as accessible as we can. That's one of the great things about being a local official. So listening, planning. I promised that we would develop a 5-year plan. We've done that. 2 years ago, we unveiled it. We put it on the website. We sought input as much as we could and developed something that you could count on so that you would know. And you can, like I say, check it out on sgcity.org and see how we're doing this year. I also do essentially a make good each year at the state of the city, which again we started as I began my term, doing each year in February, just after the State of the Nation and State of the Union and State of the State. We do the State of the City. So those are ways that we're trying to let you in on the planning, so you know what you can expect from us. Though there will always be changes, at least you know there's a plan and you can know what it is. Also, again, number 3, working on business and education. We have been, I feel, very collaborative partners with our K through 12 education, as well as Dixie Applied Technology College and Dixie State University. And I think even just close by here, an example of that is the 3-way partnership, collaboration, win-win-win that we were able to achieve through the selling of Elks Field to the school district so they could sell the property of East Elementary to the university so they could expand their campus, which is not easy to do. They're kind of landlocked over there. So a three-way partnership. We actually built a new Elks Field with those proceeds at Bloomington Park. So win, 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 perhaps. Not too often you get those, but we do that here. And so I felt good about those partnerships. Even beyond that, of course, we've tried to do whatever we could to support Dixie Applied Technology College in their building of their new campus, their first owned campus on the hill. We sold them 30 acres. Part of that, we donated 10 of those 30 acres so that they could afford to build and have a place to build well into the future. Dixie State University, again, partnering with them, actually donating a small piece of land that we had held jointly so that they can have some of the resources that they need to build their human performance building, which is they're breaking ground for tomorrow. So I believe we're good partners there. We've also done some things with student housing to try to help facilitate more of that around the campus. So those are three things I think you'll see. And of course, part of the business, the biggest thing, and I hope we'll talk more about it later, is Tech Ridge, the old airport. Again, the anchor tenant will be Dixie Applied Technology College, but what will be coming soon, we'll be selling part of that land, the northern part first, and then moving our way south to private developers. We're not the developers, we're not in that business, but we want to sell that, turn that into something special that will benefit all of us for decades and decades to come. And that will be for higher paying, locally grown, as well as, we hope, some recruited tech type jobs. Those typically have higher wages and hopefully will help us keep some more of our kids and grandkids here. So those are some of the things that I hope, if you haven't noticed, I hope you will notice, and we'll maybe talk a little bit more about them as we go. So I hope we'll get into some of the issues. I really would appreciate your engagement. I'd appreciate you going to my website, ilikepike.org. If you would like to know more, I have some signs out there if you care to take them and put them in your yard, and I have some information I've passed around. Would be happy to hear from you, and I hope for your vote on or before November 7th. Early voting started today. Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
My name is Lane Rano. I was born in Cedar City, Utah 100 years ago. Well, a little short of that. Raised in Panaca, Nevada, the center of the unknown world, which is just 87 miles north and west of here, through high school, back to Cedar City for college, and then the University of Utah Law School, and some other things, other places. I was a Justice Court judge in Salt Lake, South Salt Lake actually, for a while. And I got out of that and got into something worthwhile. Prior to being a judge, I'd been on television and radio and all those fun things, and it was really a great understanding, an opportunity to understand what went on everywhere in the world. But finally I got around to doing something really worthwhile, and that's consulting with businesses, not-for-profit corporations, and governmental agencies. And my history is efficiency, transparency, and cutting budgets. I was the director of building and zoning enforcement for Salt Lake County for 6 years. You've heard of code enforcement. You've heard of building and zoning enforcement. We never got sued when I was there. They're sued here. $4,000 a month in retainers fees for a lawsuit that goes on and on and on. I was the chief deputy school superintendent for Yuma County Schools in Yuma, Arizona. Why did I leave there? I'm going to tell you. My father taught me that you must be honest in what you do. When the superintendent came to me and told me that I was the chief financial officer of the school district, Yuma, Arizona, big school district, lots of employees, came to me and told me we were going to pay for the Christmas party for the employees.
out of special ed funds, I said, I'm history. So I got a job in California. You've heard of that third world country, the west of Nevada, called California. Went there and did a good job. I'll just skip forward a little bit. The last job I had down there was with the Porterville Sheltered Workshop in Porterville, California. And when they hired me, I looked at the financial statements, pardon the expression, I said, what the hell is going on here? They were overspending their budget, their revenues, by about $250,000 a month. Already that fiscal year, they were overspent about $750,000. Even a not-for-profit corporation has to make a profit. Not-for-profit doesn't mean you're not going to make a profit. It means you're not in business to make a profit. They had almost $2 million worth of long-term debt, $750,000 worth of leases on equipment, and it was terrible. And I went into the head guy and I said, is this true? He said, yes. And I said, why didn't you tell me that before you hired me? And he looked me in the eye and he said, that's why you're here. 10 years later, when I left there was no debt, no leases, the budget had doubled, and we had $5 million cash in the bank. That is fiscal management. Now, I want to tell you another thing. I was elected to the board of directors of the California Rehabilitation Association, a group that deals with all of the people that deal with the developmentally disabled in California. And they had a for-profit corporation, DSI, that provided the health insurance, workers' comp and everything for these corporations throughout California. When I was elected to that board, the meetings were 3 hours long. When I became president and chairman of that, guess how long the meetings were? 30 minutes. Management style. Now, I'm tired of talking about myself, but I cut budgets, don't raise taxes, manage money better, and do a hell of a good job. Thank you very much for being here. I have some signs out there. If you want to take one when you leave, I'd appreciate you doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lane. Thank you, John. We're going to ask that you keep the next questions to 2 minutes, and if we need to come back and rebuttal for 1. So our first question...
Somebody time us, Kay.
Yeah, Carol is...
Okay.
I'll look at you, and you do this.
Okay.
And then someone out here will tackle you. Just kidding. I know we'll keep it...
Jesse will tackle us, right?
Yeah. All right, so the first question is, and we'll start with Lane on this one, and then we'll just rotate back and forth. What is the most important issue that our city is facing? Lane?
Well, there are a lot of them. I think the most important issue is not the pipeline, the Northern Corridor. It's how we're treated as citizens of this city. We're not listened to. And how we're punished. You know, there's a saying somewhere I heard about public employees are protect and serve. You heard that? Protect and serve, that's what they're supposed to do. Nowhere in that does it say punish. The code enforcement situation, a good example of that. I mentioned it a little bit. $4,000 a month, retainer fees, over $170,000. This has to do with management. Now, I know they have all these reasons why. They follow the attorney's advice. I was a justice court judge once. I know a little bit about that and how to handle that problem. But we have a serious problem here in not listening to the people. Now, I don't expect them to make the same decision I would make all the time, but at least listen to me and respond to me. I talked to John about some problems I knew about on April the 20th. He said he'd get back to me. Now, I've talked to him several times since then. They haven't come up in the conversation. That's what I'm concerned about.
Okay, thank you, Lane. John, Same question, what's the most important issue that the city's facing?
I think today that our most important question is public safety. Everything that we do, we work very hard to have this be a quality of life kind of community. And if we don't protect our citizens against the crimes that can happen, when you think of our location, our proximity to Las Vegas and LA is closer than you might think. And so there are a lot of things I hope you don't know and that you don't see, but I do get to, unfortunately, see those things. We have gangs, we have drugs, we have crime that is concerning. And so one of the things that we're working on very hard, and this is, I hope it's not a long-term issue, but it is hard to get police officers right now. Can you understand why? Sometimes nationally, they don't have the respect that I think they deserve. So we are going to do the best that we can to attract, and we're down, frankly, we're down about 6 or 8 officers right now. It affects our ability to protect our way of life, our quality of life as we know it. So the City Council and I have directed our city manager and police chief to take some extra effort to recruit already certified and experienced officers so that we can help protect each and every one of you and make sure that all that we've done, whether it's our transportation system, our parks, our trails, even just our very neighborhoods, to make sure that we're safe. I think that's really important. That goes for fire as well. I lump them in as well, and it's not easy to get firefighters either. These are people that run into danger when we would all typically run away. So I believe that's very important. And there are certainly, other issues as well. Lane mentioned water. Well, I don't know about you, but I need it. And so I think water, and again, maybe we'll talk more about that later, that's crucial. Always has been, always will be. So gotta have water to live. So anyway, those are just a few thoughts. And again, one of the things that being the mayor is you've got to walk and chew gum at the same time. You don't get to pick one issue. There are many issues, and that's what we deal with. And that's okay, that's our job.
Thank you, John. Okay, I think on these next questions, we'll take each 1 to 3 minutes. And it's already been mentioned on code enforcement, so we'd like to address that, what our future is, and how we feel about code enforcement. And let's go 3 minutes, and we'll start with Mayor Pike.
So code enforcement is an interesting thing. And I've been involved with the city as a city council member first for 6 years, and now as mayor for almost 4. And so code enforcement probably, in my estimation, this isn't hard and fast scientific data, but I would suggest to you that 5 to 10% of the population would like us to relax code enforcement a bit, take it a little easier. Let people have control over their property a little more. That's based on emails and phone calls and meetings that we've had. I would estimate there's another 5 to 10% of the population that would say, no, we'd like you to be a little more severe. And, especially when it's next door to me, when that rooster that's illegally in the next door neighbor's yard, you want it gone right now. If there's someone that's operating a business illegally in the backyard, they want it gone right now. And these are otherwise great conservative people, even libertarian people who would say, leave me the heck alone as much as possible. But I would tell you that that's my observation, not scientific. Somewhere in the middle there's a large 80 to 90% of people that would say, hey, I'm fine. I'm living my life, and they don't typically come out and let us know one way or the other, again, unless there's something that really threatens their enjoyment of life in their neighborhood. So some of the devil's in the details. It gets hard. Where do you draw the line? Right now, we are working on what's called our Title 10. It's our land use ordinance. It's the biggest, most significant piece of legislation on the books of the city of St. George. And we will be, as we finish this redo, making it consistent with state law. We will be the first city in the state to really do that and be in full harmony, at least for a minute, right, Representative Standard? Because it can change when the legislature meets. They'll make some changes, most likely. And so we need to keep up with that. A lot of cities have a hard time doing it because it's complex. Not only that, though, within the ordinance, it's so complex. You know, when you make a change here, you got to make sure you make it here, 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 and you still make it easy enough to understand. That is what our goal is to make it easier for the average citizen and business owner, developer to understand so that they know what to expect in all of our land use ordinance, including code enforcement. So you'll see some things that currently we're not enforcing that will not be in existence anymore in those in that code enforcement realm. And you'll see some other things that might be tightened up a little bit based on the experience we've had. But the great thing about laws and ordinances at the local level, I like them being at the local level because you're here to influence us in a faster, more efficient way.
Thank you. Lane?
Well, code enforcement I'm a little bit familiar with. Being the director of building and zoning enforcement for Salt Lake County for 6 years, which I've already mentioned. But I'm very concerned when I hear people complain here in St. George City, the greatest city in the world, about code enforcement. If it's only 1%, it's too much. If it's 5%, it's really too much. I talked to a guy the other day that was from San Francisco. Why would anybody come here from San Francisco? Oh, it's better here. And he told me that he was a builder in San Francisco, and when they came here, he was going to build the house. He was going to build his own house, and he did. And the guy came up to him and said, I'm the chairman of the HOA here. And you can't build that more than 2 feet above the ground, the foundation or whatever it was. And he was 3 feet. And the guy said, well, why is that? The next day he got 2 red flags on his house from the city, stopping him. The city was enforcing the HOA's rule. Now the real funny bit was, there was no HOA there. It had been there, but it would be dissolved. This is the type of lack of situation. Another guy called me out in Red Canyon. It turns out that out there, they didn't enforce the code that they should have as related to the fill and so forth that was put in when they put in a subdivision. So there needs to be consistency. The codes need to be with references to what the people think is right, not what the politicians think is right, and enforced reasonably, and put out of business when they're no longer needed. And there needs to be a reason for them, not just because we think it's okay to do this because we're solving a problem in the neighborhood. Solve the problem, don't start a code. Thank you.
Just could I offer a...
Yes, 1 minute.
Very quickly, I'll be faster than that. I would just ask which people, and that's the difficulty. When you're in the position, which people do we listen to? Because there are 85,000 in our city. So we want everyone to be happy, we really do. But we've got to really consider as best we can everyone's voice, and that means, really by definition, someone's going to be unhappy. So we're going to do the very best we can.
Lane, would you have a minute to...
I sat in a city council meeting a year or so ago, and a former attorney sat down by me, and I said, why are you here? And he said, well, they're doing a change of zoning in my area. And I said, well, didn't the Planning Commission hear this? Yes. They had a hearing. But they didn't let any of us talk. They didn't let any of us talk. And my answer to John is, you need to listen to everybody.
I agree.
Everybody.
Yep.
And make sure that they're heard. And not take it personally if they disagree with you. but analyze it and see what's best for the citizens, the community, the builders, of course, the hotels and everything. But let's be realistic here. Let's be efficient and do the right things.
I agree with you 100% on that last point.
Okay, thank you, John.
Wait a minute, I didn't get that recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, you did. CC's got it.
All right, well, it's a healthy discussion. I know personally I'm enjoying this.
Me too.
Already. So let's move on to another subject, infrastructure. Basically, we're asking about our roads and transportation and the funding to keep that going. And I believe we'll start with Mayor Pike.
Okay. Along with water, I would say transportation is one of those, and the other infrastructure is one of those key things. When I go and visit Mrs. Stukey's government class at Dixie High every term, I talk about the different things that the city's responsible for. And we talk about roads, and we talk about water, and we talk about sewer. They don't like to talk about that much, by the way. And we talk about, power, and of course public safety and other things. But when we talk about really the essentials, the infrastructure, local government is where literally the rubber meets the road. You drive on it every day. You expect that when you turn the faucet on, the water's going to come out clean and safe. You expect the toilet to flush and to have things go where they're supposed to go and be treated. And if we mess up on any of those things, or we don't plan, we don't maintain, you're going to know very quickly and hold us accountable, as you should. So it is, again, part of our plan, and more so now than what it has been, to make sure that we maintain all of that infrastructure as best we can. Recently, we made it known that in terms of our transportation system, we have some risk. This is about 1.5 years ago. And we do have a difficulty replacing roads based on, frankly, a flawed revenue source coming from the gas tax. So when the state legislature made it possible for counties to put that issue on the ballot, the sales tax for transportation and for transit bus, counties could determine to put that on the ballot and decide by the people's voice, letting the people decide if they want to invest more in those two things. Ours chose not to. And we explained, and frankly, it's all that really we can do in local government is to educate. We educated that every 13 years in St. George, we're able to resurface a road. That's getting out there. I think Greg would know that from his work experience. That's getting to be a long time between resurfacing. So those are some of our concerns. We're doing the very best we can. When that measure was voted down in the county, it actually passed in the city, but it had to pass in the whole county to be put into place. It didn't pass, so we're doing the best we can with lower cost options and exploring all of those that we can. SunTran, our bus system, will not expand until and unless we can afford to. There are people that wish it would, and there are people that wish it wouldn't. So again, we're just going to do the best we can in all those things, most of all protecting and preserving the things that matter the very most, that you can get from here to there safely, that you can have the water and the sewer systems to count on every time. And of course, your power coming from 2 different power companies, one from the city, one from Dixie Power, that they're reliable as well.
Thank you, John. Lane?
Infrastructure, is that transportation too? I thought that was the roads and the bridges and all that kind of stuff.
We kind of combined it all, Lane, in this. We have infrastructure and road and transportation funding.
Someone asked me one day in one of my interviews, don't remember who it was, commented on the fact that maybe we ought to look at how much we could privatize, and maybe the transportation thing is one of those, because private entities usually do a better management situation than governmental agencies. Now, it may not work, but it's worth looking into. And I think the roads need to be looked at and something need to be done. And I'm not there, so I don't know what the problem is, but I want to get there and look at the problem, and I'm capable of doing that. But some of our roads are really bad, and something needs to be done about that. There's some complaint about impact fees. And I don't know what the purpose of those are, except a lot of people said there's no low-cost housing for people because of the impact fees. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. That's what people are complaining about. So maybe we need to look at that differently. Maybe that has nothing to do with infrastructure. But I want to tell you about the traffic problem here, and something's got to be done with that. I was on my way to try to get to Chuckarama yesterday. You know how desperate you get to Chuckarama, where the food's practically free. And I was eastbound on 100 South and came to River Road. It took me 15 minutes to make the left turn there. I think our traffic control could be managed better and designed better and programmed better so there are not all these waits. And I came up with an idea just sitting there. I don't like to sit somewhere at a stoplight for 15 minutes. But if they change the left turn to go first instead of last, it would clear the day. One of the problems there coming up River Road, when the left turn from 100 South got ready to turn, it was all stopped on the other side. You couldn't even move because of the stoplight up at the St. George Boulevard. There needs to be better management there. Someone look into it that can look at it and make a difference. Thank you.
Anything to add to that? Okay, thank you. You did mention affordable housing, and that is our next question. So we'll jump right into that, and we'll start with Lane this time.
Well, I remember when I was young and innocent. Well, I was never innocent. I was just young, and looking for housing, and I rented one-rooms and basements and places that flooded, and sometimes the sewer came up, and when I was poor and dumb. And we need affordable housing. One of the big problems here is no housing that people in a certain economic level can afford. We need to do some due diligence and find out what's wrong and how we can do it better. And maybe the impact fees need to be moderated a little bit when we're trying to help people. Now, if we're building $500,000 homes, and I'm not denigrating that situation, but some people can afford it and some people can't. Now, I think you understand what I'm saying. We need affordable housing here, and I'm not ready to jump in right now and say how it can be done, but I want to find out and look at the problems and get it solved.
Thank you. John, Mayor Plank.
Well, I'm ready to jump in because we've been working on this for the last 4 years. And what we've got to show for it today is we have over 700 apartment units in various places, various sizes, and what will be various price ranges are either under construction or will soon be. So you have over by just behind the mall, actually closer to Riverside Drive, you have an apartment complex being built there. You have what's called the Greyhawk development, 244 apartments that are being built behind the new Smith's Marketplace, just off of Mall Drive and near Riverside Drive. Across the street from those, when you talk about truly affordable housing, and this is where we're really talking about some of the chronically challenged in terms of maintaining affordable housing, the Friends of Switchpoint, who we are partnering with, that's a 501c3 organization, we are donating several acres of ground where they will be able to, as they finish getting their funds raised, build a 60-unit affordable housing complex to help those people who have been helping themselves get out of Switchpoint, the homeless shelter, community resource center, take the next step. So that's a little different from the apartments, but they'll be close by transit, close by shopping, close by work, potential work. Also downtown, you'll see coming out of the ground shortly, the Jewel Plaza, where the old Wilkinson Electric is. we've been working for years with them to build a what we call mixed use facility, which means business, retail on the main floor, and on the upper 2-3 floors, apartment housing of different types. And same thing in our City View project, where we sold several acres of land we'd been holding as a city, sold that to a developer who will be developing three other buildings. One is a hotel, and one is a 110 apartment unit building that, again, mixed use, has retail such as restaurants and shopping on the lower floor, to try to help those who would like to live, work, play, and learn in the central part of St. George. So you're seeing those happen. We have some townhomes being built on South River Road, and we have recently, just in the last year, and even as recently as last Thursday at our city council meeting, with a public hearing, by the way, where we received no comments from the public, but I think if they would have had comments, they'd have said yes. We have passed what's called a traditional neighborhood zone, and we've augmented that by allowing for separation of houses, kind of like you might have seen in Park City or San Francisco, where they might be taller and skinnier and have only 2 or 3 feet between them, so that we can have people own a home but have it a little more dense. And we're hoping that developers will mix those things in what we call this traditional neighborhood zone, where you can have a few apartments, a few twin homes, a few single family homes, and some that might be between the two, townhomes, maybe separated, maybe joined. So all these are things that we are hoping the community will try. We don't force it, but we allow it. We allow developers to use those various things that have worked elsewhere. And so I think that will help us to really have some more options in the next 18 to 24 months. You'll see that significantly with the rental properties, apartments. And that's probably enough.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Carol, did you have any questions from the audience? Did you gather that yet? Not saying that we're going to ask them. Would it possibly for you to bring them to me? Okay, you could do so at this time. But as Carol's coming over, and this was a subject brought up. I don't know, Lane, if you would want to give 2 cents on it, but we'll start with Mayor Pike. It's what surplus funds do we have, and how are they used?
Well, there are a number of areas of surplus funds. First of all, the way the city is organized, there is the general fund. It's really where your general operations of your city are housed, if you will. That is about a $67 million budget. And so we're allowed to have what's called a fund balance, but that fund balance can't be over a certain percentage, or the state would say you've got to use that or give it back to the citizens. You're collecting too much. So we haven't done that, and frankly, again, our only sources of revenue are sales tax and property tax, and then we do get some other taxes that go to what are called B and C road funds. And the only thing that we can influence is the property tax. And so we haven't raised property taxes since 1996. So we do the very best we can to manage fiscally soundly every year and put a little bit aside into that general fund balance. And we also have what's called a capital projects fund. And that is similarly, it's a savings account where you can use when you have some surprises. It's essentially like the general fund. It's a rainy day fund. And so we use that and again, we have a big ticket item like a fire station, that we can build the fire station through impact fees that new growth causes. Lane referred to those earlier. That's what helps us fund infrastructure for new growth. But we can't buy the fire engine with impact fees. So we can if we have some money in our capital projects fund or our reserve, our fund balance. We also have fund balances, savings accounts, if you will, in the wastewater treatment fund and in the energy services fund. none of these have gazillions of dollars, but you would hope, I would think you would want us to have sufficient to where if we had a downturn, we'd be able to operate for a time with those funds. So we're very prudently, fiscally, soundly managed, and that's how we do it, but we never exceed those allowables either, those allowed funds that the state makes sure of. So any further question on that?
That's good.
Okay.
Anything, Lee?
Well, I haven't been in the city government for 6 or 8 or 10 years like John has, so I can't comment on the different funds. But my history is going in and looking at funds, looking at money, looking at problems, and finding out the best way to do that. And I just asked you for the opportunity to do that and make sure that what's happening is happening the way it should be. Now, I'm not questioning it, but I have a wonderment if it might be. There are some other management problems that I'm concerned about, and we can talk about those later.
Can I make one quick comment?
Yes, please.
Would like to just make sure everyone knows that the budgeting process occurs in the time period. Will actually start in about March. We will put it to the public. In other words, there will be 2 public hearings. We're required to have 1. We have 2. They'll be in June, where you can come and listen and see. You can actually get a copy of the budget. You can view and then before we vote on it, you can make comments on it specifically. If you would like right now to see the budget, it's online, or you can actually go to the library and see a copy of it. So anyway, just want you to know that is your document. It's your city. You are the stockholders. So you get to see every bit of it that you want to see.
Okay, thank you. After reviewing most of the questions, Glenn, I think we've handled a lot of the similar subjects, roads. There is a comment about addressing an issue of the St. George Police Department, how we're recruiting officers and acquiring an armored vehicle. Why would we, and what are the costs? We'll go with Mayor Pike first.
We haven't acquired any armored vehicle recently. Hurricane did.
I think that's a little confused. That was Hurricane, thank
Yeah.
you, John. But on the recruiting of police officers.
Okay. I will say, I don't want to be deceptive, we have an armored vehicle that we got as a result of, I think, a drug seizure years ago. It's not quite as fancy as Hurricane's new one, but we do have something. We don't pull it out very often. We hope it's not necessary. What was the next thing?
It was our recruit process of more police officers.
In terms of recruiting, again, we're advertising everywhere we can, but more importantly, one of the things we're doing right now that we've authorized is to actually allow for a signing bonus, if you will, for those that are certified officers who elect to come here and who will stay for a period of time. So we're doing that, and we've had some success with that already.
Yeah, thank you, John. Lane?
I'm all for public safety people. I'm sure they don't get as much money as they could, and some are killed in the line of duty and so forth. It's a very dangerous profession. But I have a couple of experiences I'd like to very briefly tell you about that I think was mismanaged. I was rear-ended by a Washington County school district car 2 or 3 years ago, right out here at this 4-way stop. I was westbound, and this woman ran into the back of me. Neither one of us were injured. I called 911 so they could come and send a police officer to write a report on it. The dispatcher said, "Do you need an ambulance?" And I said, "No, we do not need an ambulance." 30 minutes goes by. We'd moved the cars off the side of the road. 30 minutes goes by and nothing. And I called again, and she said, "Do you need an ambulance?" And I said, "No, we do not need an ambulance." 30 minutes goes by, and guess what happens? 2 ambulances, 2 fire trucks, 3 police cars pull up. I'm drug into the ambulance and spend the next 6 hours in the emergency room, them trying to find something wrong with me. They found nothing. I got a bill from Intermountain Health Care for $3,800. My insurance company got a bill for $8,800. Took me a year to straighten it out. Fast forward to about 3 months ago. My wife and I visited them until they died, just through the fence from us. And he died. They went on a cruise, and he got sick and died. And a month later, got a call from her son asking we'd go over and check on her. I went over. They had a combination lock on the door. I opened it. My wife was with me. She was unconscious on the couch. I'd just seen her in church the 3 days before. I called 911. I said, we have an emergency here. There's a woman unconscious on the couch. Can you send an ambulance? And I explained the number on the house was not the street number. It was the HOA number. I'm an HOA. Anyway, the ambulance went by once, around the back twice. Finally, I was talking to the 911 operator all this time. Finally got her to understand where we were and what the deal was. 2 ambulances, 2 fire trucks. There were 11 safety people there for one person who's unconscious on the couch. Now, she was sick. She obviously needed help, but that's a little overkill. And maybe if the safety department was managed a little better, they'd have a little more money to give the people raises. She did pass away later. But I'm a great supporter of public safety, but it needs to be managed a little better. Thank you.
Okay, there is a question about funds from the senior games, from the Huntsman Senior Games for the city, but I would, whoever asked it, I hope that our mayor would address that after, because I don't think it's really a question for this forum, even though I'm curious, so we appreciate that. At this time, we're going to give each candidate an opportunity simply to tell us why we should be voting for them. And with that, let's see, John started, so we'll have Lane go first, and then Mayor Pike can finish. And we have 5 minutes left, so let's go 3 minutes on each, please.
I'll be very short. I've lived here a while. I could tell you the story of why I came here, but I won't. Well, my wife told me this is where we were going to come. But there's some problems here. If you look at my information I've given out to you, the very first sheet tells you why I filed for mayor. And I think there's some serious problems in management there. And they need somebody that's going to get in there and not be intimidated. I'm going to repeat that because I think this is a big problem. There needs somebody in there that's not going to be intimidated by the people that have been there for 25 or 30 or 40 years and has a little bit of experience in knowing how to manage fiscal responsibility that can stand up to these people and get things on track. Now, you can decide about the pipeline, the corridors, and so forth, but I need to be in there to make certain that it's being operationally managed correctly. Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you again. Appreciate you being here. You know, we really need to be engaged in our political process, and it's, you know, I honestly hope that the attendance here isn't foreshadowing of what the turnout will be over the next couple of weeks. So please tell your friends and neighbors and family to study the issues. You can find information about, I hope, every candidate either on a website at utah.gov under voter information. I know I have information there. I'm assuming Lane has information there. I know the city council members have information there, candidates for that. And I have my own website, as I mentioned. a ring to it, so you'll remember ilikepike.org. I hope you will learn all you can and choose the best person that you believe will represent you. This is about leadership. It is about collaboration. It is about having a plan, having things that you set out to do and then doing them so that the people can feel comfortable. Yes, he said or she said they were going to do this, and they did. How about that? That's what I've tried to do, and I believe I have in all the key areas that I've set out to do. I think it's important to understand that we have a wonderful team at the city. The department heads report to the mayor. That is one of the greatest things that in my career, if you will, as the mayor, I get to work with those awesome department heads. And frankly, again, in terms of longevity, I have hired most of them. So they have come in the last 4 years due to retirements and so forth, one leaving to go up north. And so we have a great team. We have several that have been there, like the fire chief and the police chief. They're incredible resources in terms of their leadership. They do a fantastic job. And I would just say I'm really proud to be a part of our elected team. Ed Bach is here today from the city council. We have 5 elected officials plus on the council and then the mayor who work together to ensure that your resource, that your city is managed appropriately. We hire the city and we choose if to retain a city manager to make sure that it's done appropriately. And speaking to the city manager position, this is public information. The city manager will be retiring here in a few months. So the city council will hire, and they'll let me have something to say about it, I'm sure, too. They will hire a new city manager. And I believe we're going to have significant interest because of the reputation of the city of St. George. It's a pleasure to serve, and really, again, it is about serving you and this community that we all together, I think, love very much. And I know we all agree on that much. Thank you very much. Again, I ask for your vote on November 7th.
Thank you, John. 1 minute left. Lane?
I also have a website, and it's not I Don't Like Pike. It's lanerano.com. So check me out.
Okay, thank you. Hey, let's give both candidates a big hand. Appreciate it. I believe we will have them hang around for a little bit if you want to ask them little things about our Dixie Tech up on the hill, good things, and also that's an interesting question. If we make money from the senior games and how the city funds that. So one more time, thank you candidates. Thanks. And everybody, November 7th, we are adjourned.
If you need a sign, there's some out there, take them.